Hello friends, welcome to Research Live. I am your host Dr. Sabyasachi Sengupta, founder and director of Sengupta's Research Academy and practicing vitreoretinal surgeon in Mumbai. Research Live is a platform meant to ignite the spirit of clinical research amongst all of us. Here I host some of the most eminent researchers in India and am confident that their journey will inspire us all.
Today we have the legendary Dr. Jyotirmay Biswas from Shankar Nethralaya, Chennai, fondly known as JB Sir to all his students all around the world on Research Live. Dr. Jyotirmay Biswas is an ophthalmologist who has specialized in uveitis and ophthalmic pathology. He has done fellowships in vitreoretinal diseases from Shankar Nethralaya in Chennai and has done a fellowship in ocular pathology from the Doheny Institute at the University of South California at Los Angeles. He has published a whopping 456 articles in peer-reviewed PubMed indexed journals and has 54 chapters in books of ophthalmology. He has presented over 300 papers in national and international conferences and has delivered more than 400 invited lectures all around the world. He has 3 books on uveitis and 1 book on ophthalmic pathology to his credit. He is a reviewer for 52 journals and is a visiting professor at the Advanced Eye Center at PGI Chandigarh and Chinese University of Hong Kong. He has been the principal investigator of 13 major research projects and trials and has mentored 44 fellows on uveitis till date at Shankar Nethralaya. He has received 34 awards so far, which includes the Hari Om Ashram Award for Clinical Research from the Medical Council of India and a number of Oration Awards, both national and international. He is a member of the International Uveitis Study Group, the American Uveitis Society, and the Executive Council member of the International Ocular Inflammation Society. He is a founder member and past president of the Uveitis Society of India. He was the first to describe ocular lesions in AIDS in India. He is currently working as the director of uveitis and ophthalmic pathology departments at Shankar Nethralaya in Chennai. Dr. Biswas also recites Bengali poems and writes Bengali articles and has received many awards for this. He has been my teacher during my fellowship days at Shankar Nethralaya, but my admiration for him started in 2005, ever since I read the review article on Eales disease in the Survey of Ophthalmology. I am sure we will learn a great deal from the legendary Dr. Biswas. So without further ado, let us welcome our very own JB Sir to the show.
Sir, thank you so much for being on this show and taking time out to come and answer questions and help us get inspired. And
thank you very much, Sabyasachi.
Thank you, sir. So we'll get underway with the questions. How did your clinical research and publications journey start? So what motivated you?
It was 1985. I was a consultant at Shankar Nethralaya, and there was a project, ocular morbidity in active systemic tuberculosis. I was in this project and I was trying to find out the ocular lesions in the active systemic tuberculosis. I used to go in a TB institute called Institute of TB and Chest Diseases in Chetpet, Chennai. And I used to see that all the active systemic pulmonary tuberculosis cases and see the eyes. We developed a eye clinic over there. And that was 1,800 cases of TB we saw. And we documented the cases. And then we tried to analyze the cases, and that was my past project. Mm-hmm. And this motivated me into the further research project, which I did the microscopic study of the vitreous aspirate, which Dr. Badrinath used to do, remove the vitreous and then send it to me. I used to go to the pathology of the Apollo Hospital and get the microscopic study done. I was trying to correlate with the clinical features along with the microscopic features, pathologic features. That prompted me to go into the more and more into the research.
So quite a large study project to get underway straight away. There's a lot of cases that you had to see and document. I think that was a great initiation that you had. So the second question was, did you have a mentor or someone that you really looked up to?
So it was initially Dr. Badrinath, who conceptualized many research projects. Though he was not actively involved in the clinical research, but he planned several research. And as a clinician, I used to look up to it. And then later on, Professor Narsingh Rao, whom I had a privilege to have a training under him. 1987 to 89, I was in Doheny Institute, University of Southern California, Los Angeles. And there I saw that how he managed to conceptualize a research project and then pursue it and then collaborate with several other people. And I used to be involved in this such kind of collaborative process. I used to do that research in AIDS patients, ocular lesions in AIDS. I also, that pneumocystis carinae choroidopathy, which was first described, I was involved with it. I was also involved in several basic research also over there. And that was really a pivotal part of my career to get into the research.
When did you publish your first paper? Tell us a little bit more about that, and what role did you play in that paper?
That first paper was a microscopic study of primary non-familial amyloidosis of the vitreous. Dr. Badrinath saw a case. He was quite stunned by the type of the clinical pictures. He sent the vitreous sample to Doheny Institute, Los Angeles, where Dr. Narsingh Rao confirmed as an amyloidosis of the vitreous. He gave me the paper to write it up, and I wrote several pages, about 7 pages for that paper. And then the editor wanted to make 1 page. I don't know how to do it. And then my wife was there. Even I took the help of my wife, who cut it ruthlessly and make it 1 paper and that page, and that got published. That is a very very peculiar experience.
I think it happens with the first papers. They're always it's not so easy. All right, sir. How important is it to start your research journey early, maybe during MBBS or even during residency? Do you think it is okay to start late?
No, actually it's okay. But if I wish I could have started during that MBBS course itself. But there was no research, was not priority that period time. But residency period, I did some paper writing and some clinical work. I did that sporadic cases of conjunctivitis, acute hemorrhagic conjunctivitis. I used to correlate with the microbiology department, and I learned how to collaborate that time, and wrote an acute sporadic conjunctivitis, hemorrhagic conjunctivitis, and that was published in Japanese Journal of Ophthalmology as well as the Indian Journal of Medical Research. So I was one of the part of that project.
And where did you do your residency, if you can just?
I did my residency in PGIME at Chandigarh, and that was that time I was quite inspired by Professor I.S. Jain, who used to do a lot of research work, clinical research work that time. And his name was published in Index Medicus. I used to see that, and I was quite inspired by that.
Right, sir. I was interviewing Dr. Amod Gupta, and he also named Professor I.S. Jain as one of his early mentors. Right, sir. The next question was, how important do you think it is to publish your thesis? Postgraduates do thesis.
I think it's very important. One put so much of effort in the thesis, and it should not go waste. And if you can plan a little bit, if you can proceed a little bit, you can publish your thesis into a very good journal, because you have worked for 2 years or 1.5 years for that paper, and that's quite a good amount of data. And only thing, you need a little guidance how to write it up, and then just try to publish the material. It's very important. You shouldn't make it lose that. You shouldn't lose that material.
How important do you think is to get formal training in research methodology even before we start? Do you think it is okay to learn along the way?
No, actually, I think is that in the residency period, one should have some formal course, like even a week or a month course in the clinical epidemiology and research statistics. Today's world is so difficult to make without the knowledge of the clinical epidemiology and statistics to formulate a prospective research work. So I did have fortune to have 1 week statistics course in PGI Chandigarh, and then 1 month course while I was in Shankar Nethralaya at the beginning of my consultancy. That helped me a lot. But later on, a lot of things has changed. I wanted to get it updated. I try to get, but it's more and more difficult. I think is that one should get a regular training in that biostatistics, epidemiology, at least for a course for a week or so, and then get involved with the kind of research work. You can plan a little bit better. You can understand better the journal article, as well as you can review the article also if you do have a statistics or epidemiology and an epidemiology course.
So I have a website where there is an online training material for residents and fellows to get initiated. I don't know whether you've seen that, but
So I've seen it. I feel that more and more that kind of training facility should be available, and the medical colleges or institutes, so that they can, in the All India Ophthalmical Society meeting, such kind of thing will be very useful. I think it's very important to have a kind of a research methodology, understanding of the research methodology. That's quite important in today's research work.
how important is an international stint to improve your research skills? We've already heard that you've had international exposure, but do you think that is essential, or how does it
No,
help?
I think it's not a must. One can have an research or a kind of a fellowship in India itself. There are a lot of clinical and basic research going on in India, and you can go such institutes or some places where such research is going on, and can get involved in the clinical or basic research or clinical basic research, I call it.
Yes, sir.
And I think it's possible. It's not a must, but if you get an opportunity to go abroad, your vision opens up, your outlook opens up, and you see that how a planned research is done.
So it definitely helps. So people should grab the opportunity.
Yeah, it has.
If they get
But
one.
it's not a must.
Right, sir. Then the next question is, in your opinion, what should be our approach to biostatistics? Do you do your own statistics, and how do you communicate with a statistician? I know we have
I
already
do.
gone over this a little bit, but a little more.
Yeah, I do go very regularly to the statistician before planning a prospective study. Several times I go to him and make a design of the study. It's quite important. Even in the retrospective study analysis, I go to a statistician. It's quite important. And also I take help in the reviewing some papers which comes with the statistic component is the major part of it. I take the help. I think is today's world, biostatistics is quite important to know that clinical research particularly.
Right, sir. So I think one key message here is that we need to go to a statistician before we start. Even
Yes,
even for a
that's
retrospective study,
quite right.
even before we start, I
I
think that is a key message there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I think people will really appreciate that. So the next question is, so how did you get so many research ideas? So many different projects. How did you get these ideas?
So I do regularly, routinely. I go to that library and see all the new journals is coming, new issues of the journals coming. I go through it and I get ideas. Even seeing a patient, a difficult patient or a series of patients, I get ideas. I go to that, see the abstracts of the ARVO abstracts, particularly is very helpful. I go through the abstract and get an idea. I sit in the free paper session, even in the state ophthalmologic meeting, and get ideas. They might be presenting as the seed of the seed of the thought, and this makes me feel that one. I also discussing with the other people during the conferences, I get ideas. Mostly, I get ideas after reading that the new issues of the journal.
Right. So nowadays, journals have this e-table of contents where you get
Yeah, yeah. It's,
the issue right in your
e-
email as well. So maybe the young
yeah,
generation can at least make it a point
sure.
to
I
subscribe to the.
also try to get the e-content of the abstract.
Right, sir. Right. Sir. Nice. I think some very important messages coming out in terms of how you can get so many ideas. Right, sir. So next question is, what is the key to your manuscript preparation? We have seen that your manuscripts are very immaculate. Is there an order in which you start writing manuscripts, original
I'm
articles?
very particular about the materials and methods, inclusion and exclusion criteria, and I go through it several times, and that should be kind of an original ideas and steps. I follow it, and then I go to the photographs. Photographs should be, if the photograph is not good enough, I don't go into that, particularly in the case report. And so if the photograph is not good enough, I don't go for it, and I choose good photographs for that one, and tables, good tables, photographs, and then after that results we will write it up, and then last is introduction and conclusions as well as the abstract. So material methods I put the most amount of the thrust, how I do that, and that I design it before that study.
Right, sir. I think a pattern is emerging where the more I interview experts and people who have published, the more we get this idea that everyone starts with the methods, then go to the results, and then to the discussion and introduction, and finally the abstract. I think this is a pattern which most of successful people who publish successfully are doing. Then, is there a particular paper or a group of papers that are your favorite or have been most impactful in your career?
See that I was trying to look at that microscopic study of the tuberculosis, and I did find 5 cases, and I tried to assimilate that information, and that was one of the landmark paper in the published in the Retina Journal. I followed the tuberculosis, ocular morbidity, and active systemic tuberculosis to start with, but Eales disease I mostly worked on it, and the short of the papers which I published was is a learning process, and I wrote a review article in Survey of Ophthalmology on Eales disease, and that time I learned about this disease quite a lot while going through the literature of a huge amount of literature. So Eales disease is the close to me, my heart, and I did some work on the PCR of intraocular fluid tissues and make some correlations of that one. That was also a good amount of work I did, but nothing particular in favorite. If you ask me that one, that Eales disease was my close to my heart.
Yes, sir. I think most of the information that we gathered about Eales disease during residency was from your review article. The way you have classified it and the way you have, put down all the clinical manifestations systematically. So that was I think, a landmark paper that you published in Survey of Ophthalmology.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Then the next question is there any particular project that you're working right now that you are very excited about that you want to tell our viewers?
Yeah, it's not a very art-shaking work, but I was trying to do a prospective study in Shankarnetralaya called Shankarnetralaya tubercular uveitis study, and this is abbreviation is the SUN2 study. We are almost taken about 200 cases of tuberculosis seen in ophthalmic center, and the various presentation. We used a standard diagnostic criteria and standard investigations, and it's quite a good amount of information is coming. I'm quite excited about it, and this is one of the work as doing. And in the collaborative work, several imaging work we are doing with other consultants. That is like an optical coherence tomographic angiography, and we are trying to look into the various choroiditis types.
We wish you the best in these upcoming papers. Then, how did you manage to devote time to so much of research activity despite being a busy clinician and also having administrative duties?
So, to be very frank, I keep the clinical work. Patient is first. Patient is priority, and that should be in our country. but a segment of the work I reserve for the research work, clinical and basic research, a part of the time. And this can be in the before the I start the work or after the work. I used to work till late night, like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. That was the time I used to work for the paper and write the material methods and design a study. And I was doing a pathology work. So morning I do the pathology work. So in between the pathology work, if I used to get any time, I used to devote for the uveitis work also. Actually, the pathology work was a gold mine actually in our country, and not much of clinical pathological work was done when I started, and that made me quite busy in the doing in the clinical pathological work, and I did quite a bit of clinical pathological correlation study, and that was done during the working hours.
So I think you probably managed your time well, where you fitted in everything in one day, and then had to work till 10 or 11. So if there is desire, then it is possible.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, a great message that there is. So then that brings us to the next question of how did you manage a work-life balance despite being with so much going on?
I think I'm not an ideal example of work-life balance, but I try to keep that as less work as possible to bring it to the home, because my suitcase didn't allow me to take many things in the briefcase, which I used to do that one. So much of the things I couldn't take, and but I used to keep a balance between the work and one, and that's what my wife has not left me to till now.
Right, sir. And sir, the last and final question: any special message to the young and upcoming researchers in India from Dr. Jyotirmay Biswas?
So I think is the research requires a passion. I think that's my one. The passion and perseverance, two things is required. One need to really go for it. It doesn't come in the normal routine way. As my feeling is that one it drives you, and they make you work at the late hours of the day and morning, and think about it more, and that will fall in places. Not all the time you succeed, but the passion is quite important, and there is the perseverance till the paper is sent to the journal, mailed it to the journal. It's not the work is complete until you reply the research questions, till the answer reviewers question. It's not complete. So you need a perseverance. You need to see that the last author's corrections also is important. So it's not complete. You need to really pursue it, and that requires perseverance for publications and the research work.
So that brings us to the end of this interview, and thank you so much, JB sir, for taking out your time and spending this time with us, and giving us an insight into what makes you who you are.
No, I'm still learning.
So we thank you very much, sir, once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.